It was an early morning on the outskirts of a high-security military installation. The air was heavy with the faint smell of oil and gunmetal, the rhythmic sound of boots against concrete echoing across the wide-open yard beyond the gates. Guards in uniform stood rigid, their rifles glinting under the pale sun, their eyes sharp with suspicion. And then Aishi arrived. A black sedan pulled up to the checkpoint, slowing to a halt. Out stepped a woman in her early 30s. Dressed simply but elegantly in a fitted navy blue suit. Her hair was neatly tied back, her expression calm but unreadable. She didn't look like anyone remarkable, not at first glance, not a soldier, not an officer, just a civilian. But there, pinned neatly on the left side of her jacket, was a small badge, plain, silver, civilian clearance. The colonel at the gate noticed it immediately. He was a tall man with a square jaw, sharp gray eyes, and an ego that seemed to weigh as much as the medals on his chest. His lips curled into a smirk as he stepped forward, boots crunching against gravel. Well, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. What do we have here? A civilian with a plastic pass, thinking she belongs at a restricted base. The soldiers nearby shifted, some glancing at one another, barely hiding their amusement. To them, the sight was ridiculous. A woman without uniform or stripes standing in front of a place where only power, hierarchy, and rigid protocol reigned supreme. But the woman didn't flinch. She met the colonel's gaze with a calm steadiness that unsettled him more than he'd admit. You might want to verify before you dismiss me, she said softly, but her tone carried weight. The colonel chuckled, shaking his head. Verify? Lady, I don't need to verify anything. Orders are clear and no unauthorized civilians past this line. And that little badge of yours? It doesn't mean much in my book. His words hung heavy in the air, laced with arrogance. The woman simply straightened her shoulders, refusing to back down. She didn't argue further. She didn't plead. She didn't even look offended. Instead, she stood her ground in complete silence, and that silence, a broken bar, unnerved the colonel more than any protest would have. The tension at the gate thickened as minutes dragged by. Soldiers kept their eyes fixed on the standoff, whispering in low voices when the colonel wasn't looking. Who was this woman, and why was she here? Then, the air changed. A low, steady rumble began to roll across the road. The ground itself seemed to vibrate. The guards stiffened instinctively, their heads turning toward the distant sound. One soldier squinted, then his eyes widened. Convoy, he muttered. And it wasn't just any convoy. Black SUVs appeared first, their tinted windows reflecting the sun, engines growling like beasts. Behind them came armored vehicles, their polished exteriors gleaming with the unmistakable insignia of the nation's highest office. Flags fluttered in the wind. Radios crackled with coded chatter. The president's convoy. The colonel straightened immediately, his smirk vanishing into a rigid line. His posture snapped to attention, his hand twitching toward the brim of his cap in an instinctive half-salute. This was no ordinary inspection. The presence of the commander-in-chief himself turned the base into a stage where every mistake could be catastrophic. The soldiers around him stood taller, their amusement gone, replaced with nervous anticipation. The convoy slowed as it approached the gate. The sound of engines reverberated through the yard until, against all expectations, a broken bar had stopped. Right in front of the checkpoint, doors opened with sharp precision. Secret Service agents poured out, eyes scanning, hands discreetly resting near their holstered weapons. Their movements were like clockwork, efficient and deliberate, radiating an authority that even the toughest colonel could not match. The woman at the gate didn't move, didn't flinch. She stood calmly, as though she had known this moment was coming all along. And the colonel? His chest tightened with unease. Something was wrong here, terribly wrong. Recognition and respect. The rear door of the armored limousine opened with a soft click. A hush fell over the soldiers. Even the colonel held his breath. The president himself stepped out, tall, composed, wearing a dark suit that seemed to carry the weight of the entire nation. He scanned the scene with sharp, calculating eyes. He wasn't here to inspect the base. He wasn't here to greet the colonel. Number. His gaze went straight to the woman with the civilian badge. In that instant, every ounce of certainty the colonel carried drained from his body. His stomach twisted. His smirk had the one he had so confidently worn only minutes before had vanished entirely. The president walked directly toward the woman, His pace was steady, his face breaking into a rare, genuine smile. "Apologies for the delay," he said, his voice warm, his tone filled with respect. "We've been expecting you." The world around them seemed to freeze. Soldiers blinked in disbelief. Secret Service agents gave her a nod, confirming silently what no one else had understood. The woman extended her hand and the president shook it firmly, like one greets not a subordinate, not a stranger, but an equal. The colonel's heart pounded in his chest. Shame burned through him. He had mocked her, dismissed her, laughed at the very badge that now stood revealed as a quiet symbol of immense trust. He realized, too late, that she wasn't just any civilian. She was the one person the president himself had stopped his entire convoy to meet. And in that moment, as silence fell heavy and the truth sank in, the colonel froze, his arrogance shattered, his authority stripped away by the simple, undeniable weight of recognition.